Live from the pitch pad in New York City. Get ready to unleash your inner entrepreneur with Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the Shark Tank, this is the place to be to discover how to turn your pitch into reality. Fasten your seatbelts, pitch stars, because the spotlight is on you and we are about to make success happen. On this episode of Pitch Live,
television, film, and theater are businesses of failure. Studio will buy 50 scripts. They may make 7 pilots. So you've got 43 things that are automatically dead. Maybe out of that, 3 or 4 go to series, and maybe out of that, 1 survives. So it is brutal business with a lot of bodies piled up to get to that one show that's a hit. Kind of try and keep everybody excited about the prospect, but realistic about where this has to thread the needle to survive. And that's why it has to feel cohesive, but new.
Get ready for Pitch Live in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Pitch Live. I'm your host, Amy Summers, founder and president of Pitch Publicity and Nisi Vox. I'm also a hardworking entrepreneur who's passionate about helping you reach success in any area of your life. And I know that's possible after decades of experience in perfecting the pitch and enhancing communication skills, which is why I'm here today and joined by Flody Suarez, who has made an extraordinary impact across Broadway, television, and film. Now, I'm going to go into his bio, but I didn't tell Flody about this. We always like surprises, right?
Of course.
You're a producer. So before I go straight into your bio and tell everybody how fabulous you are, I just want to do a quick fire round with you so they can kind of get to know you. So I'm going to just ask you a few questions. I'm going to give you 2 possible answers. Just pick one, whatever comes to your mind first. Don't think about it. And we'll see if our audience can kind of guess your bio as we go along. So here we go. All right. ER or Friends?
ER.
Okay. Broadway or big screen?
Broadway.
Okay. Networking or negotiating?
Oh, networking.
Amazon or Netflix?
Netflix.
Okay. Hard one, I'm sure, for you right now. London or New York?
Don't make me pick. I'm New York because I live here.
Okay. Well, there you go. So Flody and I are both alumni of the University of Florida College of Journalism and Communications, where we met through our work together on the CJC board and the Alumni Association group Gotham Gators here in New York. If you ever pass through the Hall of Fame at UF, we have a lot of college students watching this show, you'll find Flody honored there. He was inducted in 2020. Flody's career began in advertising with impressive campaigns for iconic brands and organizations including Rolls Royce, WCBS-TV, and the New York Mets. As VP of Marketing at Miramax Films, Flody led numerous advertising campaigns before moving into television. At NBC, he served as VP of Development, overseeing production for hits like the Emmy-winning ER, Third Rock from the Sun, and Just Shoot Me. He also spearheaded campaigns for iconic shows, including Friends. Flody quickly made his mark as a visionary producer. He's known for award-winning projects like The Book of Daniel and 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. Most recently, he oversaw production with Live with Kelly and Ryan, and that must have been so much fun. Was executive producer of NBC's Rise. Flody's recent work on Broadway includes producing the Cher Show, which I have seen 2 times, and Tom Jones' musical What's New, Pussycat, as well as the play When Playwrights Kill. Welcome, Flody. I can't wait to peek behind the curtain and see everything that we can learn from you today and how you make success happen, or how we say at MSH, or make shit happen on this show. And I have to tell you, just a little confession. As I was putting together how I was going to introduce you, which, just so everybody knows, Flody's bio is like 3 or 4 pages long, and I just did that in like less than a minute. So I cut out a bunch of stuff. But after I read your bio, I was like, what? Okay, there's no reason why I should ever feel tired. Some days I'm just like, oh, I'm doing too much. But then I'm going to just read your bio when I have days like that, because you have done a lot.
I have. And I'm going to apologize to anyone listening. I have a terrible head cold and I'm pounding, but I I don't normally sound this cloggy.
but he is powering through. Well, as they say on radio, it just makes you sound more sexy. So we'll go.
There you go.
All right. So I want to go to first kind of your days in advertising. So there specific skills that you still use from those advertising days in pitching today? Because I'm sure you do a lot of pitching.
I think, yeah, everything in the entertainment industry is somehow involved in a pitch. You at every step of the process, you're pitching something. With advertising, it was incredibly research heavy. It was incredibly detailed and focused, and you really spent a lot of time with your research department honing ideas and testing ideas and testing thoughts and phrases and sentences, and it was fascinating, and I really enjoyed kind of that micromanaging of the process through research and honing pitches to really incredible degrees, and you were dealing with big corporations, and they wanted the numbers to back up those massive expenses. With When it morphs is when it's your own stuff and it's creative and it's a TV show or a Broadway show, or then it's a little bit more freeform and passionate because you're playing to a completely different audience and you're selling something that isn't quantifiable.
That's so interesting that you say that. And I'm glad you brought that up about how much research is involved on the advertising side, because when you watch shows like Mad Men, you really just see the creative side. It seems like they all get together and come up with a great idea, but
Well, I
like,
think the Mad Men era was a little before me, and I think it probably was a lot more freewheeling back then.
okay, okay.
And by freewheeling, I mean drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's a lot on the line, I guess, in advertising. Like if they're going to spend those ad dollars, you got to have the numbers to back up to say we really strongly feel like this messaging is going to work.
yeah, I think in the 70s and late 60s, it became such big business with television booming and the cost of ads and the reach of television into homes. It became really important that you knew exactly what you were selling because the cost of it was so much higher than it had ever been. And I feel like, I was working for Jerry Della Femina at that point, who was just brilliant. And he was one of the leaders of that shift to really selling a company on the numbers and delivering creative that was shocking, but that fit the profile.
That's so interesting. So can you give us an example of the type of pitch that you commonly do in your role today? Like, can you give us an example of what are you pitching and like what is your process?
Well, so last week I pitched a very famous writer on doing his most successful movie as a play, and he had wanted to do it as a musical. And so my pitch was why it would be more successful as a play and it's a perfect movie. I feel like when you take a movie and put music to it, sometimes it really messes it up. You have to change the drives of it. And so I really did a big hard sell as a play, and I got away with that one. But other times I'm pitching theater owners for a theater for a specific show. Other times, I'm pitching an actor to do a role. Other times, it's just going into investors and pitching them why this is a great investment. When they have 40 different choices every season, why put the money in my show? So you kind of tailor every pitch to what you want out of it.
You have so many different audiences that you're pitching. I want to talk about the investors though, because obviously they're important. I mean, if you don't have the money, the show does not happen. So
They're the lifeblood of Broadway. You can't do Broadway without the investors there. And what's really kind of nice about these people is they're passionate about Broadway. They're people who grew up loving it, and it's not so much business people, it's people who love being part of theater and sitting in that theater on opening night and coming back and bringing their friends and feeling ownership of something that they're passionate about. And so what I find when talking to them is you know pretty quickly if they're passionate about the subject that your play is about or your musical's about, and whether they're going to be part of it. And I feel like there's something really special about Broadway because it's the only place people can participate. You can't do it in television, you can't do it in film, but on Broadway, you can be part of something.
Now, you've been an investor too. I think, weren't you one of the original investors in Hamilton?
I have a tiny, tiny little piece of Hamilton that I am very, very happy about. I was able to put some money in at the last minute.
When you were approached for that project, did you jump on it right away? Did you like see it, or did you had to really think about it? It's a smashing success now, but in the beginning, like what made you go, okay, I'm gonna be part of this?
So I had come to New York to learn about Broadway before I did the Cher Show because I had never done Broadway, and there are things called workshops where you put up your show and show people, and I had kind of stumbled into the Hamilton one, not knowing what it was, and I'd been to a lot of workshops at that point, and to say it was a staggering work of genius, even at that phase, is underselling it because it was wild to sit there and watch it from the opening beat. Just and it didn't change that much. It was just a perfect show in every way, and I kind of sought out people involved with it to be part of my project because I looked at it and went, "Oh my God, these people know so much more than I do," and they were able to see this and how the stage would work and how it would look and how it would move and how it would sound, and I was just fascinated by it. So I ended up getting in business with a lot of them, and through that was able to get a tiny little piece of Hamilton.
When you talk about investors, is it different from other industries? Because every industry, like whether you're food and beverage or other areas, they all have investors. In this arena, are you reaching out to like friends and family and people that are in your network of Broadway that love Broadway that have maybe invested in others? Is it more familiar like that, or are there certain people that like specialize in investing in Broadway?
There are a lot of people that are really involved in Broadway and investing, and they're part of the lifeblood of the business. They're everywhere. They're at every event, they're at every party, they're at every opening, and so you get to know them over time. And it's a very small little high school. It's a great group of people that are born to theater and they love it. And so I find that kind of joy and excitement about what you're doing really helpful. And so I've tried to surround myself with a lot of those people, but also, well, like with the Cher Show, people just wanted to be part of it. It's Cher, and she's iconic and kind of somehow part of everyone's childhood or adult life. She's just been omnipresent. So that was kind of a very easy show to raise for. Other shows are not as simple as that, but that one was kind of particularly easy. I find there are a lot of people that hear about things, and with the movie I'm doing, there'll be a lot of fans of that want to be part of it. I have a Tom Jones musical, and there are a lot of fans of his that want to be part of it. So you get a lot of calls from people, and you do a lot of calling.
So let's talk about the Cher Show that you brought up. This was your first Broadway production?
That was my first
Okay.
Broadway. I'd had the idea for a long time, and I knew it. I knew I could take her songs and tell her life. But it didn't feel like a TV show, and it didn't feel like a movie. And I kind of had the idea Mamma Mia existed, but Jersey Boys didn't yet. So I had the idea a long time ago.
Oh, wow.
And it was just kind of like, oh, I can tell her story if I rearrange the songs. And so I spent, a few years kind of licensing the rights, and then I spent a few years trying to get to share, and getting to her in the right way so that she was excited about it, wanted to be part of it. And then we went down the road with a writer and director that for whatever reason it just wasn't the right fit for it. And you get one shot at Broadway. That's it. You put a show up and it lives or dies. And so we kind of went in a different direction, and I moved to New York, and I started meeting really kind of like day in, day out Broadway writers and directors and producers, and we built a team that way. And Cher was very involved in all of that. And so she, it was kind of our team and put it together that way.
I'm so glad that you did put that show together because I have to say, I mentioned that I've seen it twice. But the first time I saw it, I really didn't know her story. I mean, obviously, everybody knows who Cher is, and as far as music goes, she's a little bit ahead of my time. So, like, I knew
Mhm.
of her, but I didn't really know that story. But as a female and really learning, like, things like, she had to get married to, like, have a credit card and, like, run a business. I mean, those things really are things that we talk about today. It was just shocking to me. But I personally really became a Cher fan only after seeing your Broadway show, so I'm glad that you were able
Nice.
to tell it in that way.
She, and I've said this to her, she was kind of an inadvertent feminist. She was just fighting to survive.
Mhm.
She was fighting to be a single mother, to be able to work, to be able to have a career, to not have deals made by men that she didn't like, that weren't acceptable to her. And she, at the very beginning of her career, she was kind of controlled. And I think a lot of her power came out of finally standing up for herself and taking charge. And she is in charge. And it was fascinating to watch her relive those moments and to have her tell you the stories and really get the background of why she made these choices. Because a lot of times it felt like, oh, she's fighting for women's rights, and it was no, she was fighting to survive, and it was a universal fight, and so she kind of was ahead of the charge the whole time. But the
Yeah,
credit card thing was fascinating. Like she couldn't have a credit card.
and I know it's the '60s, but it's not that long ago. It's a little it's like, "Oh, okay, I get it now," like, why women didn't have a choice. They really had to get married to have things like finances.
Yes, bank accounts. Yeah,
Like, simple things. But I really do appreciate many of her songs now, even, through the decades that now I can understand what they mean because of your show, so I do appreciate that. But going to Cher, so
mhm,
you were working on this before you even approached.
yes.
So I take it you had this idea, you did not have a relationship with her at all. How do you start something like that with someone like so high profile? Can you give us a few little hints, like if somebody had an idea like this, and how do you start approaching somebody so big?
Well, so, Cher has a team around her, and, I talked to the agents a little. They weren't as helpful as I had hoped, but then I got to her music managers, and, normally I wouldn't say, "Ooh, music managers are just, like, the most helpful of." These guys were amazing. They were on top of it. They loved the idea. They thought it was right for her. They thought she would enjoy it. And through the 12 or more years that we did this together, putting it together, they were always just like the most helpful and smart and savvy people to deal with. And she's a busy woman, she's got a ton on her plate, and they always were able to tell me, "Okay, now's the time to do this, now's the time to do that, let's try this, so they were integral in getting it done, and they just said, "Look, at some point, it'll be the right time to pitch it to her," and they called me one day and said, "Okay, it's the right time," and I was like, "Great, when do you wanna do it?" And they were like, "It's the right time." So I drove out to Malibu in that moment and pitched her. What I did was pitched her 2 versions. One was kind of a Mamma Mia, not her life, and the other was I laid out 20 or so songs and told her what moments of her life each one of those would be married with, and she was kinda silent for a little while, and I was flop sweating and panicky, and she finally went, "Why would we do anything but my life?" And I was like, excellent. That's the answer I wanted. I think it's so much better and will be so exciting, and now I'm going to leave. I got the yes. Now I'm going to go.
Okay, let's step back a little bit. So you get the call, they say, "Okay, now's the time to go pitch her, like, go do this now." I mean, literally, was it that you jumped in your car
I
and
was in my car
you were in the
and
car?
just went, "Okay, I will cancel my afternoon, and I will go do this."
Well, that's lucky you were at least in the same state.
Yes. Yes.
So
Well, but from Hollywood to Malibu is about an hour drive, so
yeah, or 2 hours depending on
depending on
traffic.
the yes.
So when you get there, I mean, she's never met you before, I guess, and
No,
can you
no.
just walk us through, like, and I know this may be very basic, but, for somebody that's never done this before, I mean, what do you start with? How do you get someone to kinda trust you in the beginning? Do you start out with a joke? Do you compliment her on her outfit? Like, what is it that you do before you sit down and make the pitch? Is there small
I'm trying to remember the day. I mean, she lives in this beautiful Moroccan palace that she built on a hill in Malibu, and it's spectacular. And I love antiques and stuff. And I think I probably was standing looking at something when she walked in the room. And she's there's Cher the persona and there's Cher the person, and the person is kind of this incredibly soft-spoken, kind, interested in you person. She's very deflective and she makes a lot of self-deprecating jokes. So she's just lovely. And I think whatever I was looking at, she came over and told me the history of it. And we entered a conversation that way. And her managers had teed her up that of who I was and what I wanted to do and how I was thinking of it. So she was already aware of what the conversation was going to be. And I think we had some kind of fun small talk. I think she got a kick out of my name. Um, uh, I mean, she was just very funny. She was just very funny and very easy to deal with. And at one point, she kind of made my day because she looked at her manager and said, "Doesn't he have Val Kilmer's smile?" And it's like,
take that?
"Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that."
So when you're working with someone like Cher or Tom Jones, do they always get very involved, or does it just depend on the person?
I think it depends on the person because this was her life.
Mhm.
I and I said this to her that day, and I said it to her a million times. It's like the only way to do this is for you to love it. It's your life. We've got one shot at it, so you've got to love this thing. And it was really hard for her at times with having to relive kind of painful moments, deaths of people she loved, breakups.
A lot of trauma in that story.
I mean, she's had a big life and she's overcome a lot. And I think there was just a lot in there. And I remember we were watching one of the previews and it was during the Malibu fires and she's sitting in the theater next to me and the show's going on and she keeps looking at her phone because the cameras are showing the fire kind of burning her palm trees and about to take over her house. And she at intermission, she just looked and she goes, I got to get out of here. Like between Sonny's death and the fire, I'm like, I'm a wreck. And she left. And so like I had to go back and tell the actors and like it's the fire, it's not you, so yeah, it was interesting to watch her life on stage. And on opening night she had her sister there who had never seen the show, and it was really sweet because all during the show you could hear them talking. She goes, "Oh, remember when mom did that?" And, "Oh, remember when Sonny did that?" And so it was just kind of funny to hear their running dialogue with it.
It's amazing, and it's gotta make you feel so good to kinda see it come to that kinda completion that you worked so hard and so many years for. T You may or may not have an example for this for the Cher Show, maybe something else, but can you give us an example of a time when you were in the process of pitching where you just kind of felt like you were not getting through or hitting a lot of walls? When you get to that point, how do you what's the self-talk you give, or how do you push through, or what point do you say, "Okay, this is not gonna work," and you just drop it, and have you done that before? What's the signs? Like, when do you know to, like, I don't wanna say give up, but, like, "Okay, this is not happening."
Well, so I talk to writers about this a lot because when you're pitching TV and film and theater to a degree, mostly TV and film, it's the writer who's pitching. It's the writer director. You're teeing it up. You're selling the world and the concept and this team, but it's their vision somebody's buying for a TV show. The writer is everything in a TV show. And so what I do a lot of the times, we've worked on pitches and so a lot of times after the first pitch or the second pitch, we'll try and go, okay, that didn't land. This was good. That wasn't good. But what I'm very clear with everybody about when you go into these things is television, film, and theater are businesses of failure. You know, a network or studio will buy 50 scripts. They may make 7 pilots. So you've got 43 things that are automatically dead. You get 7 pilots. Maybe out of that, 3 or 4 go to series. and maybe out of that, one survives. So it is a brutal business with a lot of bodies piled up to get to that one show that's a hit. And so I kind of like try and keep everybody excited about the prospect, but realistic about where this has to thread the needle to survive. And that's why you always want to pitch something in a way that it's right for where you're pitching, but it's not so similar to everything they're already doing. It has to feel cohesive, but new.
It sounds like, in a way, it's a little bit of an odds game too. You have to put a lot of things
It's
out.
Vegas.
It's funny that you bring that up, and then also the feedback thing, because in my line of work, pitching media, it's a lot the same way. I mean, we have to pitch so many media contacts to break through and get that, one really good interview. It takes a lot. Also, too, if we
Yeah.
find that they reject our pitches, I'm always telling my team, ask why, and not in a 2-year-old way, like, why? But, like, try to find out, was it the topic or the timing or just any type of feedback? Do you coach people to do the same when you're pitching?
I always try, and Hollywood is a very small group of people, so you're friends with the people you're pitching to in most cases. So it's easy to to do a call on the side and go, okay, was there something, what can and sometimes it's just we have similar things. We tried this a few years ago. It doesn't fit our model right now, or sometimes it just wasn't right for us. I'm always reminded there was for years at CBS there were these two really brilliant women that ran the comedy department, but they were known for hearing comedy pitches and not laughing, like just stone faced.
Yep.
And they were thinking and they were writing and they were taking it in. And at the end of the pitch, you would think, oh my God, we just died. And they would go, that's really funny. We'll take it. And it's just like, oh my God, okay, I thought you hated it. But they were genius and they put on most of their big hits. Their game face was different than other people's. And then you go to other rooms and people are being kind of overly responsive to your material and you're like, oh God, they're faking it. They're not going to buy this. So you never really know from the response. It's later when they all regroup and look at their big board that you figure out if you fit into it.
Do people pitch you a lot, and what would they be pitching you?
Writers pitch me ideas or books. I get sent a lot of scripts to read, specs. I do a lot of kibitzing. I help people with their material, just because it's a hard process, and people who are writing things kind of get lost in them sometimes, and I can help kind of refocus things and find things for them. Um, I get pitched a variety of things. I tend to, at this point in my life, unless it's something I hear and go, "Oh my God, I have to do that." Lately, it's been my ideas. Lately, it's been things that I'm passionate about and want to do. So I'm more in the pitch mode than the receiving mode.
Having received pitches, though, have
Hmm.
you do you have kind of a list in your head of, like, never do this that you would tell somebody, like, when they're pitching someone for a TV show or something in entertainment? Are there just, like, avoid this at all costs, just generally speaking?
Well, I think the pitfall is to use too many other shows as references. To go, it's like this, it's like that, it's got this, and I feel like when you're having conversations about shows and you're saying, oh, in your pitch, this is probably because when you're going into a network, they're going to have heard that particular week 40 pitches. And the week before, they will have heard 40 pitches. And the week before, so they're hearing pitches all day, every day, and they cannot buy them all. So they're looking for the no within your pitch. And I'm always trying to say to people, okay, don't give them the no. Like, stick to what's vital and fast and funny and sells what they do. But don't go overboard. Don't go too far. Don't give them a reason to pass. And that's where I think kind of inexperienced writers will kind of lock in on things that they have to have. That well, if they don't like that, and then they'll reference 20 other shows that have something similar. And I'm like, yeah, I have no idea how that was pitched or how it got through or why, but doesn't mean yours is going to. Like, and the fact that somebody else did it doesn't mean they're going to repeat it. So I feel like listen to what people are responding to, and keep your pitch as controlled as possible, because they are in the no business just by volume.
And avoid saying things like, "This is the next Friends," or "This is the next, like, blockbuster," what
Yeah, no.
referencing something that was so big,
Yeah. Yeah,
because
it's
I think immediately in the mind, it goes, "How could it be the next Friends?" Right? Then they go straight there.
yeah. Yeah, it's you wanna, if you're doing young ensemble, the person you're pitching knows Friends. Yeah, they're already there.
How do you have any recommendations for, like, dealing with pitch rejections? So, if you get rejected, and I'm sure, like you said, they're in the no business, so you're gonna get a lot of no's.
Yeah.
Do you do you always change everything just because you get a no, or is it just the wrong person sometimes and you keep pushing through? Or when do you kinda say, "Okay, I need to go back to the drawing board here?"
I think it's a little of all of it. I think there are times when you go, "Mm, I feel like this is the right pitch. I feel like this is the right show. This is the best version of this. Let's see if there's a different person to hear it that will love it." And sometimes, it's heartbreaking, but you just don't crack it. Other times you have to look at your pitch and go, "Oh, this is what's turning them off." Like, I had one show that it was a soft idea with an edgy writer, and he kept in the pitch using words I wouldn't have used, that I won't say on a podcast either. And you could see that some of the men and all of the women in the room were oh, just at the word. And I'm like,
Flinching.
quit saying that. It's taking them out of the pitch, and they may love the idea, but you've taken them out, and that word isn't helping you. So I think it's just kind of that ability to step back and honestly analyze what you've done, and whether it wasn't right for the place you took it, or it wasn't the right pitch. Now you have to tailor your pitches. Same show, different pitch for each network, because they're all looking for something slightly different. There was a time when you knew ABC was kind of blue collar comedy, NBC was kind of sophisticated adult comedy, CBS was slightly older comedy, and Fox was animation. So you knew to what to pitch everywhere, and you could tweak a show to pitch all four places. But now it's a little more. FX is kind of male driven, and Amazon's looking for female driven, and so you have to really kind of look at where you're taking each show.
Now, you mentioned that entertainment can be very cutthroat, the industry, but you also mentioned that it's also a little bit like high school and, everybody knows each other.
Yeah.
If somebody really wants to build connections in the entertainment industry, where is the best way to do that? Is it on a social media platform like LinkedIn, or what is the best way to kind of get your foot really in the door?
So there's no right or wrong way. It happens a million different ways, and I say this to actors and writers, and I I I I just think be present. I don't think it's necessarily online. I think it's go to the events, go to the parties, go to the openings, go to whatever you can get into. Network as much as you can. Take the courses, because whoever's teaching that course is somebody you want to know. And some of the other people that you meet in those courses are going to be your contemporaries as you grow in the industry. And then I think, eh, take any job you can do to get in the door, even if it isn't what you think you want to do. I know 1,000 people that started as actors who became brilliant directors. I know directors who thought they wanted to direct who are now brilliant writers. And you find your place. You find your way in Hollywood and on Broadway, and you get to where you're meant to be. And I think it happens on the executive side. I know casting directors who have become brilliant programming execs. I know business affairs people who have become managers and agents who love it. And I just think, don't get locked into a track because it's what you think you want to do. When you're actually doing it, be open to everything. Bounce around. I mean, I started in publishing, went to advertising, went into a film company, and then to a TV company, and then to my own company. And I was in PR for a while. I was in marketing for a while. If something sounded interesting and fun, I tried it. And I think be fearless that way. Go out and do different things. It will round out your resume. You'll learn all these different businesses from every different angle, and it'll just make you more valuable.
Did you find in your career, did you find mentors along the way?
I did. I think I'm not as aware of those things in the moment. I think I have a minor in psychology, and I tend to sit back and watch a lot. I tend to use it to kind of navigate minefields and office politics and that sort of thing. And I feel like I immediately started working for bigger than life personalities. My first job was with Bob Guccione. Within his organization, there was a man named Bill Marley who ran his ad agency, and that's who hired me. And he was this slightly older gentleman, lovely. And I learned so much about how he protected his team. And the world was changing and the markets were changing. And he had like a 76-year-old woman who was his media buyer. And he was never going to let her go. He was going to keep surrounding her with young people so that we were keeping up to speed, but so that her well of knowledge was there for the kids to rely on. And it was a fascinating way to watch him kind of merge ages and groups and ideas. And it was very holistic. And so I loved that. And then I worked for Jerry Delafamina, where it was showmanship. It was sell, 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 and work, work, work. And it was a fun shop. Everybody had a great time there. Jerry was bigger than life, and he wanted people out in the world to know that his place, his business, was a fun place to be in business with. And so we were. And then I think I worked for Harvey Weinstein for a few years. And Harvey was fascinating because I learned what I didn't want to be in business from Harvey. And they were invaluable lessons. I learned how I would never treat people, what I wouldn't do, what wasn't appropriate, and I saw it firsthand. And so I didn't last long there. I wasn't cut out for that place, but I worked on amazing movies and learned really hard lessons. And then I got lucky enough to land a job with Warren Littlefield at NBC, and no one has taught me more than Warren Littlefield. And it was just by watching, but he was very supportive of me from the very earliest time. And the door was open. I could ask him anything. He would walk me through everything. He always had my back. And he took me from marketing exec and put me into programming and shepherded me and was and still to this day I can call him at any time and get the answers I need and the help I need. He was, I think, probably the greatest television exec of our time. He put on more hits than anyone and still did it with great humanity and built a team. And that team he built, they still run most networks and cable networks and streamers. That team is still legendary.
I love that you brought up the Harvey Weinstein because I
Mm.
always say this that mentors are all around us. They don't have to necessarily be labeled that, but there are good and bad influences all around us that we should observe. And so it's not this idea that you have to go and necessarily find a mentor and call somebody a mentor, but they're right there. They're working with you. You just have to, I like how you said that you've observed all these people that you worked with and that you learned so much from them from just soaking it in and also what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, I feel like with Harvey in particular, um, it was a good lesson because I watched people after me who had heard the stories still take jobs there because everybody goes into it with, I can handle it. And I think if you're hearing the stories, believe them and run because I don't know anybody I don't know anybody that had a good experience there. Ultimately, it's just soul crushing. And so I feel like if you're hearing a place is a bad place to work, unless you've got no other option, don't do it.
Very good advice. Well, um, I wanted to ask as we're wrapping up, how can can someone connect with you? Maybe you don't want them to connect with you. Maybe you have too many people trying to connect with you, or what would be your
Well, I think they should call
our
you.
community like? Should Gators connect with you? How should people connect with you? And what pitch do you have for us? What should everyone go out and see next that you're working?
Oh, Sunset Boulevard, Odd McDonald and Gypsy, and George Clooney and whatever he's doing. Anything George Clooney wants to do.
Anything
Go
George
see that.
is doing good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the best. He's absolutely the best. And as far as reaching me goes, I'm on social media. Anybody can find me. I'm not hard to track down. And I'm pretty good at responding.
And the real star of Flody's show is his dogs.
Yes. Who are asleep at my feet.
That's why I follow you on Instagram to see what they're up to.
I have the luckiest rescues ever. They're spoiled rotten.
I mainly see Flody's feet and his dogs in every shot.
Yes. Yes. They didn't bark. I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, well, they were keenly listening.
Yes. Or
Well,
sleeping.
Flody, thank you so much for joining us today. I
Yes.
know you have inspired so many people in your career journey and that you'll continue to do so. And I want to encourage everyone to share this episode so we can get more people exposed to Flody's work and all the amazing things he's doing. And be sure to see the Cher Show and What's New Pussycat, right?
Excellent.
Tom Jones. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a rating or a review. Your feedback helps us plan future episodes. I hope you were inspired today to get out there, pitch, be an advocate for yourself, take on rejection like Flody told you to do, expect a no, and just keep going for it. As a bonus, you can join us at amycbox.com where you can get motivated, hone your communication skills, and binge as much mentorship as you want whenever you need it. The link's going to be in the show notes along with all of our social media handles and ways to get connected to us. So thank you again, Flody, for being on.
Of course.
Continue to MSH, make shit happen, and we'll be watching you.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, thank you.